Have you ever noticed that INFJs rarely say exactly what they mean? But somehow, they still expect to be understood. They pause instead of pushing. They imply instead of insisting. They hint instead of declaring. To some people, this feels confusing, even frustrating. Why not just say it directly? Why speak in layers? Why leave things unsaid? But what if this habit isn't avoidance? What if it's awareness? What if INFJs hint because they see more, feel more, and carry more responsibility for the emotional impact of words? Today, we're entering the quiet inner world of the INFJ to understand why they hint instead of stating things directly, and why this behavior is not weakness, but a deeply intentional way of navigating human connection. INFJs experience words as emotional events. For INFJs, words are not neutral. Every sentence carries weight. Every statement shifts emotional atmosphere. Every truth spoken aloud has consequences. While many people see communication as information exchange, INFJs experience it as emotional transmission. They don't just ask, "What am I saying?" They ask, "How will this land? What will this stir? What door will this open or close?" This sensitivity makes them cautious, not because they're unsure of their thoughts, but because they're deeply aware of the ripple effect words create. Direct statements can feel like emotional force. Hints feel like invitations. INFJs are wired to protect emotional harmony. One of the strongest INFJ traits is their instinctive desire for harmony. Not surface-level peace. Not forced politeness. But emotional balance. INFJs often sense tension before it's spoken. They notice shifts in tone, posture, silence. They feel when someone is fragile, even if that person hasn't admitted it to themselves yet. So when INFJs have something difficult to say, their first instinct is not to assert. It's to soften. They hint to give the other person space. Space to reflect. Space to respond without feeling cornered. Space to save face. In their mind, hinting is kindness. Directness feels like emotional intrusion to INFJs. What many people call being honest, INFJs sometimes experience as intrusion. Blunt statements can feel invasive, too abrupt, too final. INFJs prefer communication that unfolds gently. A suggestion instead of a demand. A question instead of a verdict. A pause instead of a push. They believe truth lands best when it's discovered, not imposed. So they leave breadcrumbs. They plant signals. They allow meaning to emerge rather than explode. INFJs communicate in layers, not lines. INFJs are intuitive thinkers. They don't process life in straight lines, they process in patterns, symbols, and emotional subtext. So their communication reflects that. What sounds like hinting is often layered messaging. Tone carries meaning. Timing carries meaning. What is not said carries meaning. INFJs assume others are listening on the same level. When they hint, they're often thinking, "If I feel this, surely you feel it too." When that doesn't happen, misunderstanding follows. INFJs fear causing emotional harm. INFJs feel responsible for emotional outcomes, even ones they didn't intend. They replay conversations. They analyze facial expressions afterward. They wonder if they said too much, or too little. Because of this, direct statements can feel risky. What if it hurts someone unnecessarily? What if it damages trust? What if it creates a wound that didn't need to exist? So they soften truth with subtlety. Not to manipulate. Not to confuse. But to protect. Hinting is how INFJs test emotional readiness. INFJs don't assume everyone is ready for the same truth at the same time. So they test the emotional waters. A hint becomes a signal. If the other person leans in, INFJs go deeper. If the other person resists, INFJs retreat. This is emotional intelligence in action. They're checking. Are you open? Are you safe? Are you willing to hear this? If not, they won't force it. INFJs value mutual understanding, not dominance. Directness often implies authority. I know. I decide. I declare. INFJs don't want to dominate conversations. They want shared understanding. Hinting creates equality. It invites dialogue rather than closing it. It allows the other person to arrive at insight themselves. For INFJs, this feels more respectful and more lasting. Why INFJs struggle when others miss the hint. Here's where pain enters the picture. INFJs hint with intention, with care, with emotional precision. When hints are ignored, dismissed, or misunderstood, INFJs feel unseen. They may think, did you really not notice? Was I not clear enough? Am I asking too much? This can lead to withdrawal, not out of resentment, but out of exhaustion. INFJs learn to hint because directness often backfires. Many INFJs learned early that direct honesty wasn't always safe. Maybe they were told they were too intense, too sensitive, too serious. So they adapted. They learned to wrap truth in gentleness, to encode meaning instead of broadcasting it, to speak in ways that minimized conflict. Over time, hinting became instinct. Hinting is not indecision, it's discernment. INFJs usually know exactly what they feel. They're not unsure. They're discerning. They're choosing when, how, and whether to speak, based on emotional timing, relational context, and long-term impact. To them, saying everything immediately feels reckless. Silence can be wiser than speech. Why INFJs wish others would listen deeper. INFJs often wish people would listen beyond words. Listen to pauses, to tone changes, to repeated themes. Because when an INFJ hints, they are speaking, just not loudly. They are trusting you to meet them halfway. Why emotional safety shapes how INFJs communicate. For INFJs, communication is inseparable from emotional safety. They do not speak freely in environments where emotions feel volatile, dismissive, or unpredictable. Before sharing something personal or difficult, they subconsciously assess the emotional climate. Is this space safe? Is this person receptive? Will honesty be met with care or defensiveness? Hinting becomes a way to protect emotional safety on both sides. Instead of dropping a truth like a weight, INFJs place it gently on the table and observe what happens next. They watch body language. They listen to tone. They feel the response beneath the words. If the response feels open, they continue. If it feels dismissive or sharp, they pull back. This isn't manipulation. It's emotional self-preservation. INFJs know how vulnerable truth can be, especially when it carries feelings, values, or ethical concerns. Hinting allows them to remain open without overexposing themselves. Why INFJs shut down when forced to be blunt. When INFJs are pressured to just say it or be more direct, something inside them tightens. Not because they can't speak plainly, but because forced bluntness feels emotionally violent to them. They experience it as being rushed past their own internal processing. INFJs need time to choose words that are accurate, compassionate, and aligned. When that time is denied, they often default to silence. This is why INFJs may appear evasive under pressure. In reality, they are protecting something delicate. Their inner clarity. Bluntness without readiness feels like speaking without integrity. And INFJs would rather say nothing than say something that feels misaligned. Hinting as a form of respect. INFJs often believe that people deserve the dignity of discovering truth at their own pace. They don't want to strip someone of agency by delivering conclusions prematurely. They want others to arrive at insight themselves. A hint is an opening. It says, I trust your awareness. I respect your autonomy. I'm inviting you, not cornering you. For INFJs, this feels more humane than confrontation. They understand that people rarely change because they are told to. They change because something clicks internally. Hinting plants the seed for that click. Why INFJs feel hurt when hints are ignored. When INFJs hint, they are already extending effort. They have thought deeply. They have softened their message. They have chosen restraint over intensity. So when hints are ignored or brushed aside, INFJs don't just feel unheard. They feel unseen. It can feel like their emotional language isn't being acknowledged. Like they are speaking in a dialect no one cares to learn. Over time, repeated dismissal leads to withdrawal. Not as punishment, but as protection. INFJs learn that if subtlety is consistently overlooked, silence may be safer. INFJs communicate to preserve relationships, not win arguments. Many communication styles prioritize clarity, efficiency, or dominance. INFJs prioritize continuity. They ask, Will this damage trust? Will this create distance? Will this alter the emotional bond? If the answer feels risky, they adjust how they speak. They would rather be misunderstood temporarily than destructive permanently. This is why INFJs often circle around issues instead of confronting them head-on. They are looking for a path that preserves connection while honoring truth. Sometimes that path exists. Sometimes it doesn't. And INFJs feel both outcomes deeply. Why INFJs eventually stop hinting? There is a limit. INFJs are patient, but not infinite. When hints go unnoticed for too long, something shifts internally. They stop trying to translate. They stop softening. They stop signaling. This is not sudden. It builds quietly. At this point, INFJs may either become unexpectedly direct, or withdraw entirely. This is where people often say, they changed. They shut down. They came out of nowhere. But for the INFJ, nothing came out of nowhere. The hints were there all along. The connection between hinting and the INFJ door slam. The INFJ door slam is often misunderstood as cold or dramatic. In truth, it is the final boundary after long emotional labor. INFJs hint first. Then they clarify gently. Then they try again. When nothing changes, they retreat. By the time the door closes, INFJs have already said everything, just not loudly. The door slam is not punishment. It is exhaustion. Why INFJs wish others would ask deeper questions. INFJs often wish people would ask, "What do you mean by that? Can you tell me more? I noticed you paused. Are you okay?" These invitations open the door for INFJs to speak more directly. When people meet their subtlety with curiosity instead of dismissal, INFJs open up naturally. They don't want to hide. They want to be invited. How INFJs can learn to balance hinting and directness. With maturity, many INFJs learn that not everyone speaks the language of implication. They begin to practice gentle clarity. Not bluntness. Not force. But grounded honesty. They learn that directness can be compassionate when paired with care. And they learn that some people need words spelled out, not because they lack depth, but because they process differently. This growth doesn't erase hinting. It integrates it. Why INFJ communication is a quiet strength. In a world that rewards loudness, INFJ communication is subtle. In a culture of speed, it is deliberate. INFJs remind us that how something is said matters as much as what is said. That timing is part of truth. That gentleness is not weakness. That silence can be intentional. They speak less, but they feel more. INFJs do not hint because they are unclear. They hint because they are careful. Careful with emotions. Careful with relationships. Careful with truth. If you've ever felt confused by an INFJ's silence or subtlety, understand this. They were probably speaking the whole time. Just quietly. Just gently. Just hoping someone would listen beneath the words.